Welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast, the show seeking enlightenment through video games, films, and other geek culture. I'm Alex McCumbers. I've got the fellas with me. I've got Joe and Zach. So, fellas, say hello.
I'm Joe.
Hi.
Hi. I've got poofy hair today. You can see.
I've got
Like,
I've got wet hair and Rice Krispies. Well, not
Got
Rice
a
Krispies. Corn
rice
puffs.
crackers.
That word.
Yeah, those are good. I used to eat Quakers ones a lot. They come in those packages that are like as big as your head. It's a
pro
good,
tip,
yeah,
good
those.
snacks for kids.
Yeah, great, like super low calorie. But so how have you guys been? It's been a while since we've been live here on twitch.tv/Forever Classic Games, and it's been even longer since we've done an actual just like news discussion. We've had a lot of interviews and stuff here recently.
That's true. We've been kind of fitting
Yeah.
in extra things, but our weekly schedules seem to all have kind of just gotten crazy for a while there.
Oh yeah.
And I think that I'm probably the reason for that.
Some of
So
it.
for anybody that's unaware, I recently moved from Juneau, Alaska to the Dallas area here in Texas.
Welcome
and so-
to Central Time Zone.
Yes, me and Joe are in the same time zone.
The
I'm only
best
an hour
one.
away from Zach. There's
is
no
way better.
longer a 3 to 4 hour difference. It's very nice.
There will be no longer Zach falling asleep at the end of an episode.
Yeah,
It's like
Fingers crossed.
probably. No, we
yeah.
actually got to play Smite recently, and that was really cool. Me and Joe were hanging out and playing some Phantasy Star Online 2 there on Steam with some of you guys here in the chat. So that was super cool. I'm not super into that game quite yet, but I'm just excited that I can be hanging out with my friends playing games again. And I have super fast internet here in Texas. And it's like half as expensive. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
So I drove from Seattle to Dallas a couple weeks ago, and it took probably 2 or 3 days to do it. We stayed at hotels throughout, every evening, and so it was me and my wife and my roommate Eli, and it was quite the adventure. We didn't really do much because, of course, the pandemic is going on, but we stopped at some restaurants, got some fast food. It was always the drive-in, so you get what you want. But I gotta say, parts of the Midwest are absolutely stunning. Like the rock formations, the mountains, the huge plains, like seeing a thunderstorm roll in from like 8 miles away is crazy.
that
Yeah.
sounds really wild.
now
it
you
was-
need to
it was
just
a-
get up to the northern Midwest and see some of the lakes and forests and stuff of Minnesota and hang out with me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, whenever Summer Games Done Quick comes back in a physical space, speaking of which, they're live now as we record this.
Oh, that's
So if
right.
you want to go support the SGDQ scene, they're doing SGDQ online
We'll
right now.
just raid them at the end of this.
They don't need it.
No, they don't
There's
need it.
people in there.
But we'll save our viewers a click.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you guys want to go watch it, we
You're
can do
welcome, audience.
that. So I moved to
Ooh.
Texas. I am still actively looking for work. I'm really excited about it though, because there's lots of video game development here in the general Dallas area. And that includes companies like Gearbox. id Software, I think, has an office down here. Bethesda's got one, and I think that might be the same office space. There's 2 or 3 like mobile game developers. The people that did the Dark Crystal game recently, they're down here somewhere. So there's a lot of opportunities for me, and I'm excited at the possibilities. And of course, if that doesn't work out, then there's always Austin, 3 hours south, and that has even more possibilities in the gaming space, especially retro game studios. And I think Blue Point are down there, the people that are doing the Demon Souls remake. So I'm in a place with game development happening.
Nice.
It's all around me.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation, but with tabletop gaming here in Minnesota, oddly enough.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of tabletop going on right now.
And
Which is
as
nuts.
someone who makes videos, I'm getting a lot of work in that space right now, which is nice.
Always good to have that money rolling in, brother. So I am actively looking for work in the Dallas area. If you happen to be listening to this and have a good lead, let me know. I've applied to just about all the major companies and even some of the smaller ones. But if you have a friend that works at one of those, drop me a line, tell them what we do, and that would be absolutely excellent. So
Yeah.
guys, what have you been doing? Because I've been chatting with you guys the whole time this process has been going down. But I mean, what is entertaining you? What is some of the major things happening? What's up?
So I guess for me on the entertainment side of things, just like Umbrella Academy season 2, watched through
Ooh,
that, really enjoyed it. Um,
nice.
Making our way, or we also watched the season 2 of the New Adventures of Monkey, which is just this like really fun live action adventure series, which really
Is that like
reminds.
a Journey to the West kind of thing?
Yeah, it's based off of that
Mm,
like base story, but it's a little bit more like I get kind of. It's not necessarily modernized, but it's using more modern storytelling techniques.
yeah.
But it's I would say if I were to compare it to any other show, it would fit right alongside the that classic Adventures of Hercules TV series. So it's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
got that
yeah, and
same
like
like
Selena
vibe. So
and
it's
stuff.
kind of hokey and pokey and like kind of like
Hmm.
silly, but at the same time it's a lot of fun. The characters are really enjoyable and over the top. So it's just really fun for like the whole family. Um, I finished playing my way and wrote a review for The Last of Us Part 2. I'm also rewatching Hannibal, that TV series,
Oh,
which is amazing. By the way, it's one of the most visually distinct shows on TV. I think they really nail like the horror thriller, and they really like know where to like where that line is of what they can get away with before being censored. So like
Okay.
they just really are really smart about what they show and how they show it, or what they allow your imagination to just like get away with, because there's these sequences where like Hannibal Lecter's making over the top super fancy meals, and the whole time you're thinking that looks delicious, but at the same time you're like that's people.
That's people.
that.
I've never interacted with any of the Hannibal Lecter stories or movies or any of that.
Most of it's really good. I think out of
That's what I
all of
hear.
the screen based like Hannibal Lecter stuff, I think there's only like two of the movies are didn't really hit the mark, but everything else is really good.
Nice. Might have to do that. Zach,
Um,
what about you, man?
yeah.
uh, just getting furniture, little kitchen stuff for the house. We've been working on all sorts of like little things. Been working a lot, but that's getting better. Um, just kind of picking up old games again. Picked up Neverwinter, so I've been playing it with the new stuff, having been off for 5 updates.
Yeah. Lots of
Um,
MMOs getting updates right around this time. FF14 just got a big one.
right, and I really want to play it, but I don't want to pay a subscription, so I'm not playing it.
Supposedly you can play up to level 60 now without needing a subscription, but don't quote me on that.
That sounds about right. WoW does
Yeah.
the same thing, I believe, like up to like level 20 or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, those things I've been just kind of exploring a lot of like little MMO stuff. And getting ready to pop out a bunch of articles and get on this fiery restarted train we got going on.
I have kind of led the charge with that. Put out like 7 or 8 different news articles, 4 or 5 reviews already. Like things are popping on the website at least. And then you put out that guide on Neverwinter of how to get a couple titles. So we're entertaining guide content as well.
Yeah, I would love to make more guide content,
Hmm.
especially for games like Neverwinter where there's guides for it all over the place, but they're not centralized. So, one
Yeah.
person has their pieces, another person has their pieces, but kind of pulling all of that like up to date sort of thing together somewhere, because that would make life a lot easier. Not in the same post, but in the same like accessible spot.
Yeah, and that's the issue with MMOs is things change so dynamically, so frequently that it's harder to make that guide content. Because especially with things like even Destiny, I mean, people are making updates of where to find that one sales guy weekly, and those are like popular posts and hits because it just people want to know where that is and save themselves some time. So it makes sense. Speaking of Destiny, I reinstalled it. Something to play with you guys or something, shoot some stuff. I don't know. We'll see. I I listen to a ton of podcasts and people are like, "Oh, Destiny's getting some updates," and it's kind of fun to jump into that again. I'm like, I could kind of go for some Destiny, even though I never get very far with it. It's like 90% confusion when I log into that game, but the action's fine. So before we get into like the games that we're playing and stuff, I do want to talk about some of the shows I've been watching because right now I'm doing some research on I need to get more into fiction writing. And so one of the projects that I'm playing around with is like the kaiju and tokusatsu space, specifically the superhero tokusatsu space. And so I'm watching a lot of like Ultraman, and I'm watching the actual first series of Garo, the Golden Knight, which is kind of like horror
Garo is so
adjacent.
great.
Dude, it's cool. Have you seen the entire like first series?
Oh yeah. The second one I kind of lost me for a bit, so I never came back to it yet, but I loved the first one.
I watched the animated one on Crunchyroll a while back, and it was good. But I was like, man, the original Tokusatsu so also looks really cool. So it took me a long time to find it. It's on Verve. You can get a free subscription, and it puts you out to 30 days or whatever. And so I am on that. I'm gonna try to actually like power through Garo, get through as much Tokusatsu as I can, because there's so much good stuff in Japan, and I want to use that to base some of the like actual story work that I'm thinking about. One that I do want to throw out is Ultraman Next or The Next, and it also has some horror elements. The main monster in that in particular is really interesting because it evolves over time, and it's just like a standalone Ultraman story. So you can just jump into it without having to know any of the like the Land of Light nonsense or whatever. It's just like a dude gets touched by a meteor, turns into Ultraman. He used to be a pilot. That's all you need to know. And that's on YouTube. A lot of the Ultraman movies you can just find on YouTube.
So
And the
he's got
newest series,
he's got the same origin story as Green Lantern.
it's kind of like Top Gun, but Ultraman. It's a weird little movie, but it's pretty cool. For an hour and a half, it's not bad. A lot of these movies are available on YouTube. The newest Ultraman series is getting weekly YouTube updates, so if you find the official Ultraman YouTube, it's in Japanese, but a lot of their episodes are English subbed. So you can watch like Ultraman Z or Zeta or whatever they're calling it, and that has some incredible camera work, some really cool dynamic fight scenes, and I'm excited to watch that. But they like take down the episodes as they come out, so I can't watch the first one. But the clips and stuff I've seen are really cool. So I'm really into Tokusatsu right now and kaiju in general.
Very cool.
Oh yeah. I've been in, is it Isekai?
Isekai.
Isekai. That's
Yeah.
really what I've been into a lot of lately. So,
Have you seen that one about the overly cautious hero?
oh yeah,
It's
it's
so
really
good.
really silly. It's really silly.
It's
don't think
probably
I'm
one of the better
familiar.
ones I've seen. So, for anybody unaware, isekai is the genre of anime and whatever where somebody from like the modern day gets transported into another world. And so that shows like Sword Art Online, Log Horizon, Dot Hack. That's kind of the basis for this. But now there's all these like subversions of the genre because it's like everywhere. You can find these shows like all over the Crunchyroll's latest seasons. They're actively being worked on. They're coming out constantly in droves. But now we're seeing the subversions that are like the comic or the scary, and it's just like really cool. But Overly Cautious Hero is the best one I've seen so far as like just isekai dumbness.
I'm still up there with Soul Land because it's technically
Okay.
an isekai reincarnation. It's really fucking weird to
Mm.
classify between the two because they overlap a lot.
Okay.
I
Did you
really
watch
like
that
it.
Tower of God? I haven't watched it, but it's been streaming for a while now.
I've read every bit of Tower of God, and there's
Okay.
like hundreds of chapters.
Nice.
It's been
And that's
going
a
since 2014.
is that the Korean manga or is that a webtoon one? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a webtoon Korean manhwa.
Oh, okay. I'm excited to see if that opens the door for more Korean anime in general.
God of High School just got one.
Nice. Joe,
Um,
what have you been playing actually? Like, let's get into games. That's what we're here for.
Well, lately I've been playing through
We're just here for nerd shit.
Panzer Paladin. Which
Okay.
I will be putting a review out here shortly on that. It's a really good game for like picking up and playing for like 20-25 minutes. Just to like you like go for a run, you kind of learn the patterns of a level or a boss, and then after a few attempts though, I kind of find myself putting the controller down and coming back the next day rather than just
Okay.
like going at it time after time after time. I find myself just kind of being like, okay, I learned what I needed to learn. I'll come back tomorrow.
Now, are you playing that on PC or Switch?
I'm on PC for that one.
Okay, because
Which
I
could be
I,
part of it.
I got a code too. So you got a code for review. I got one just to like talk about here on the podcast and maybe do some additional content with. So I've got it on PC as well. I think that this game in particular will feel a lot more cohesive on the Switch. And
Yeah.
so I almost bought it, but of course, me not having work currently, it's kind of like buying games is something I can't really do. I
Yeah.
like it. I think it's really a cool little 8-bit adventure. It feels kind of like Metal Storm on the NES, just a touch,
Well,
but
it
it
reminds me
has
of
like
Master Blaster,
yeah,
and
and
you
and the
because you
Mega
can
Man
get
kind of level up design.
yeah, so you can get out of your mech suit, and there's
Hmm.
certain portions of levels where you have to, and so you're like a smaller guy on screen with a little bit more mobility and like a whip, and you can like swing between platforms and things like that and do all this stuff. But you're significantly weaker,
Yeah,
and then you can get in your suit and you have all these weapons, and you can choose to break weapons to cast spells, and
the
it,
weapon system's really robust.
yeah,
It's actually really
it's
cool.
pretty
Oh,
cool. There's a lot of places though where it kind of feels like you get unnecessarily punished because it doesn't matter. You could have a perfect run and not take any hits, have full health, and you hit a pit and you go back to the last checkpoint, which was halfway through the entire level.
Very
And
retro with that.
yeah, and so that can be really frustrating because some of the jumps are purposefully put so you have to nail them, and it's just like I would almost rather take some damage and then be reloaded on the same screen or at least in the same section
Yeah,
and then try it again. But
and
when
the jump arc is like kind of awkward when you're in the mech specifically.
yes. And so when you're kind of going through, it's just like do I really want to play through almost half the level just to try that one jump again? And that's what I was
Yeah,
talking about where you take it a couple of goes and then you kind of end up putting it down because you're just like unmotivated. You feel defeated, and
yeah.
so there's that aspect to it. But aside from that, it's really fun and it looks great. It's and the characters and particularly the boss designs are really
Mm.
really good.
Suffering from similar design issues that you're having with Panzer Paladin, yeah, Panzer Paladin. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 came out right before we left. And so I played through all of that. There are some jumps in that game that are just absolutely hair pulling. Because in this is based off the original Castlevania NES game. So if you know that series of NES titles, you'll know that the jump arc is deliberate and there's no air control. And so when you make a jump, you have to be super confident that you're going to land where you need to land. Throw in rotating platforms that are only about like twice the width of a character, and it gets all sorts of funky. Like there are whole levels that are just like 7 to 8 really hard to nail platform sections that just result in death after death after death, and it's just
Oof.
really really annoying. But and that game in particular, if you're playing on the veteran mode, which is based off the difficulty, you have lives, and the big change is you have knockback. And so throw in knockback with all that, and this game is damn near impossible to like get through unless you're really really like studying it, playing it a lot. And like I beat the first Curse of the Moon on veteran no problem. This one I had to turn down to casual where I got infinite lives and
Oh
no
man.
knockback just to get through like the third level, and from there I just kept it on casual. But there's a lot of like super cool characters. There's a corgi that pilots a like steam magitech suit, which is great. He's like the best character in the game.
oh, that
And
immediately
so
makes me think of that. Bow, 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 wop,
oh,
wop.
the the dog in the plane animation, hop bop bow, I have brought you wisdom. But Curse of the Moon 2, it's more of the same. Like it's good. It's not near as good. It's not near as tight, but it's a lot more silly. So it really embraces the like silly side of the Bloodstained franchise that we saw in Ritual of the Night, and I really like it. It's cheap. I got it on Switch. I actually paid for this one. I didn't get a review code, so I liked it that much that I like put forward a review. I did the same thing with Curse of the Moon 1, and so we've got both of those reviews on Forever Classic Games.
I mean, I
Yeah.
we didn't get a code for Last of Us Part 2 either. So
No, you spent some good money on that.
yeah, because I got the collector's edition, and so if you're curious about what that was about, I did a video on it for the channel too. So
Yeah.
um,
Zach,
as-
throw out a game for us. What have you
yeah,
been playing, man?
what do you got?
I haven't been playing anything new except for Fall Guys,
Yeah,
which has
okay.
been hilarious.
The game
Taking
is
over the
hilarious.
internet.
Um, in the regards of, since I'm playing on console, I feel like I have a lot less hackers, but watching streamers actually play against hackers is kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of things where you just fall, and instead they'll be like looking over, and you'll just see them float up and off the screen. Like they're never gonna get hit, taken things from, die in the slime.
Hmm.
So, but it's always really exciting to see other people streaming it when they win, because there are team games where the hacker has to be team competitive, and they can still lose and be eliminated from that, and that's always like satisfying when they're like, yes, get out of here, hacker.
I can't
One of
imagine
my
it
favorite.
I can't
Go
imagine
ahead.
being so competitive that I have to cheat and hack to win a game like Fall Guys. Like the rewards and like the game is so inconsequential that I honestly have a good time even if I lose immediately, because it's just so silly. Like the entertainment value doesn't come from the competitive nature of it. It comes from watching 60 bean people just bumble over each other and like struggle to like hop over a small thing.
Oh, yeah.
We lost Alex.
We've traded TVs.
Yeah. We got to. Oh, I should put little like channel numbers in the corners, like little
Sorry, I had to
green
let the dogs
neon
out.
channel numbers in the corners of our.
Oh yeah, they
TVs.
should all be Channel 4. Yeah, Fall Guys is real fun. I haven't played it. I've only been like watching YouTube videos and compilations from streams. So far, my favorite person to watch is Grand Pooh Bear, because he's taking it very, very seriously, and he's like discovered all these. He's a speedrunner, so he's figured out all these like routes and stuff to make certain levels that much easier, and to give you like that much of an edge. So he's really going at it hard.
I could see Fall Guys becoming a like a GDQ event where they get like four people on stage to like in a crew or whatever to see if they can get show off their strats to see if they can get wins.
I'm waiting for the camera to let me invert it, because it's really, really hard for me, because I play everything inverted, including my camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to
old
like
man.
I have to actively like concentrate on moving my camera backwards from what I do in everything else.
Yeah.
And two, for them to start letting us do like private games.
Yeah, that'll
would
be
be
really
fun.
cool for tournament organization, and that's the
or even
like
just
staying
community
power.
events.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how it grows. Like Fall Guys is definitely something, when they announced it, I'm like, oh, that's a clever idea. But you did, until you like get your hands on it and play it, you don't understand. And it's available on PS Plus right now, I think currently.
For free, yeah.
So if you're on PS Plus, grab it, go give it a try, because I think that trying this game is where the money hits the road, so to speak. So it's taken over, man. Fall Guys is the like, it's a part of the cultural zeitgeist already. Like everybody on Twitter is talking about it. It's all over Facebook. Every
it's
social
the-
media you come across.
It's the Untitled Goose Game of 2020.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
And it really does tap into that kind of slapstick humor kind of thing. And it reminds me a lot of that MXC show on
Yeah.
Spike TV back in the day where they would
Or like
dub-
Ninja Warrior or Takeshi's Castle or any of those.
Yeah, but it reminds me more of MXC because of the silliness of it. Where
Mhm.
because MXC was like it was a Japanese TV show that they redubbed in like deliberately incorrectly.
Oh.
So like someone would run up and shout something in Japanese, but the dub over would be like, "I like cheese," and he like runs and like immediately falls in the water.
They're already adding content to it too. Just moments before we started recording, I saw that they're putting out the bullet costume from Enter the Gungeon into it, because
Oh,
it's
what?
published by Devolver Digital.
That's
So, I mean,
sweet.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And there's already, I think, a Half-Life costume, and so that'll pivot us into a game that I'm playing that I really really like, Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a 2D action platformer that has some of the best movement in any 2D game I think I've experienced. Like it is frenetic. It's super super good. It's also hard as all get out. Like the bosses in particular I don't like hardly at all, but the actual level design, going through areas, learning new abilities and getting new weapons, and it's all just super fluid and really cool. But there's a Half-Life reference. You can get a crowbar and you can get the Gordon Freeman outfit. And yesterday I also ran into a Dark Souls reference, and I don't know what it triggered. It just like it was a bonfire, and then on the side it said there's some ancient writing, and it says something something get good, and I was like, okay. There's like this weird undercurrent of humor in Dead Cells around this like really tough, hard as nails action game. I can't recommend it enough. It's super super good.
Yeah, I have my eyes on it. And I believe right now it's on sale on Steam, unless that ended today.
Maybe there's a new expansion that they put out called something Seed. It's like a $5 DLC. Their other DLC about the giant, it's free, so I just got it, and it just adds more levels, more bosses, more items. It's just more, which is always a plus in these sort of like roguelike, randomly generated games.
Yeah.
Tangential to that, but not randomized, I played Blasphemous over the past couple weeks, and Blasphemous is super cool. Very grotesque. Have you guys seen this game at all? We just put out a review for it.
I've played a couple, like I've played it for like 3 or 4 hours, and I have yet to return to it. But it did leave like a, ooh, I should really come back and finish this like impression on me.
It's
It
better
is
now
just,
than
like,
it's ever been.
it's just super cool looking. Like the design of it is just top notch. The pixel art,
Yeah.
like with a limited palette, they were able to accomplish so much with a more retro art style, and it's super impressive. Clearly inspired by like the Dark Souls Gothic horror aesthetic.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
But
Dark
it's
Souls and the like darker sides of Spanish Catholicism is where this sits
Dark
and
Souls and
festers.
Castlevania, I think, are its biggest influences.
Yeah. So it feels like a Castlevania, especially. But the coolest thing I think about this game is the world that it exists in. There's so much good, dense lore packed into these designs, and there's so much to just uncover about Custodia. And so I really, really enjoyed it. I think that performance-wise, it's like hit or miss kind of on the Switch. There's these weird little stutters that make some of the like higher tier bosses that much tougher to deal with. And the overall action can get kind of samey, but like now there's a new update. A lot of background portions have been changed and the level layout has been altered slightly. There's a thing that you can unlock now that lets you teleport between the different checkpoints, which is really handy. I didn't find that out until I finished the game, so that's fun. But there's new boss fights, there's new characters. Like now's the best time to get into Blasphemous. So if you haven't played it, or you did like what Joe did, played it a little bit and maybe come back to it later, now's a great time.
all right.
Zach, I especially want you to check this one out because the lore is like super super cool.
Yeah, I'd be excited because between Blasphemous and Dead Cells talk that we've been having over the last couple of weeks, I'm like, man, I'm starting to get this like itch for
A
Hollow
feeling
Knight again
left
too.
out.
Either I Hollow Knight. I've been looking for an excuse to come back to it.
If
Maybe
you
now's the
want to,
time.
it feels really good. It's hard, but
Yeah.
it feels good. Like Dead Cells looks like it feels good.
Yeah. Movement again, and like I played probably 7 to 8 hours of Hollow Knight on the Switch, and I really, really liked what I was playing. But Joy Cons are awful, so I didn't get very far. But the big thing that I'm doing now is I have the Hori Split Pad Pro for my Switch, and that is a life changer. Like things feel so much better to play now handheld.
Right now, you got a Pro controller too.
I do have a Pro controller that is currently out of commission.
Ugh.
So I'm gonna try to get that fixed within the next couple weeks. And my Joy Cons are buggered. Like, dude, I'm having some controller issues here recently.
Well,
Everybody
what's
is.
interesting is I was reading it was on Twitter. Someone had said that they didn't have the time or the money for repair. Or they just got lazy, and so they just kind of took their drifting Joy-Con and just shoved it in a drawer. and then recently just decided to try it, and it worked fine. The drift was gone.
It's something to do with like the oils or something getting into the sensors, so it could have like dried out or something.
Yeah,
But I
maybe.
asked locally here. There's a lot of really like passionate retro stores. There's video game stores on like every major little town here in the Dallas area.
Yeah, I've heard
So
Texas is like obsessed with it, particularly retro.
yes, and I'm very excited at that. And I have a story that goes along with that. But real quick, I do want to touch on one other game that I played right whenever I got into Texas, and that's Void Terrarium. This is from NAIS America. It's from a game designer that makes these kind of like weird hand drawn animated titles. But this is a dungeon crawler with a virtual pet running in the background. And
Oh.
so the whole premise is you're taking care of like the last surviving human, but there's all these like macabre and twisted things that happens to her. And so you'll like come back from a dungeon run. You play as a little robot named Robbie. And so you'll come back from a dungeon run and she'll be like all twisted and mangled, like in impossible fashions. And the robot, the like AI that helps you along the way is like, "Oh, we can fix her if we just like boil her for a bit, stretch her out, and pour her back into this person mold. That'll be fine." Like it is dark sometimes, but the actual dungeon crawling is like super streamlined, and it's really fun to just like go through dungeons, pick up all the items. It's a really addictive gameplay loop. I think that the virtual pet element gets kind of whiny at times, but overall, I really liked Void Terrarium. I think I gave it like an 8. So
Oh,
if
nice.
you're looking for something new and different, and maybe not super into dungeon crawlers like the mystery dungeon style games, this is one that I liked, and I normally don't like that genre.
Cool. Uh, One of the things I played recently that I think stands out was last year, Fantasy Flight Games released a Lord of the Rings like adventure game, and
Ooh, the
it's
board game?
yeah, it's a board
Yeah.
game, and
Oh.
it's a legacy game. So as you play through each chapter, what happened in the previous chapter impacts the next chapter. And so you
Hmm.
go through and you play through a whole story, and it'll warn you like, hey, if you die here, you lose the whole game. The whole campaign is over.
Oh.
But it's
Oh.
run by an app. So you have
Nice.
all these board game pieces, and you have like it comes with like 40 minis of like bad guys and the heroes and things like that. And the app will direct you on how to place the map tiles, and so it's randomly generated. And there's all these different encounters, things and things you can look into and search, and you're collecting lore while trying to fight bad guys and accomplish the major objective and things like that. But what's
Cool.
cool about it is there's DLC. So you can take all of the stuff
Oh,
I already have and buy for like $6, buy more content for this board game. There's
now is
also
that digital content that just
it
helps
is
you reformat? Okay.
yeah, it's just a digital thing through the app that adds. So I can play through a totally different story, but I can also just play through the story that comes with it with a different character
Mm,
and have totally different results. And because there's
cool.
choices and branching paths and things like that built into the game, but you play through it a couple of times, buy the DLC, play through it a couple more times, and I think last month they released an expansion that adds another like 30 minis, two more heroes you can play with, a brand new story, more map tiles. Like it's just a ton of stuff, and like the way it can be expanded is really cool. But me and my friend got a weekend away from our families to just like have a board game weekend up at the cabin, and it was the perfect weekend because it was rainy and cold, and we're like, oh, just board games? Yeah, board games. That sounds great. Then we won't feel guilty for playing board games all weekend. Because if it was super nice out, we'd be like, maybe we should take advantage of it and go swimming. But instead, we play board games. But we just spent
Sounds
the
like the
whole
right
weekend.
choice.
We spent like the whole weekend just doing that, and it took us like I don't know, probably a total of like 12 hours to play through the whole campaign.
Oh wow.
And that's
Oh.
just one time through. And the
Board
app
games
saves
are
you.
really innovating these days, ain't they? Because that is like a crazy, unique way to go about like constantly expanding.
Yeah,
Because
and
lots of board games expand. There's a new Bloodborne one coming out soon, and it makes me really want to get the Bloodborne game. But the fact that that's doing it at such a low price through a digital app, as well as doing the physical pieces as well, that's like
yeah,
super
there's
progressive.
multiple ways to add content to the game, and I think that's awesome. And the way you gain experience, so whether you fail or succeed, you might still continue the story, but you get different amounts of experience points. You can spend those experience points to buy more cards for your deck. So it's kind of a long-term deck builder.
Okay.
and you can like prepare cards and use them, or like, and you draw based off of success versus failure and things like that, and you're
Oh,
trying to succeed different threshold and stuff. Once you get into it, it has a really cool flow to it, and
Nice.
like you try to combine character abilities to try and get certain things done. It's just a lot of fun, and I would recommend, if you have a chance to play it, at least give it a shot. Bit pricey starting point, because the box of the stuff that you need is like $99 or something like that. And
Okay.
I had gotten it as a birthday present last year, and we're just now, because it's kind of hard to find someone that wants to play a board game for 12 hours.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's
but it,
lots of board game groups and enthusiasts sections, but like especially with the pandemic going right now, like getting people together for a board game is harder than it's ever been.
yeah,
And so you having people that like you trust that have been socially distancing and
yeah, and it
are
was just the
clean,
two
so to
of
speak,
us, just the two of us in the middle of nowhere in the woods, was just like,
rolling dice
well, there's no
as God
dice.
intended.
But it's super fun, and I would recommend playing it. It's also nice because the app saves your progress,
Yeah.
and so it'll even track, like, if you were playing multiple games at a time, you could just load up your save and then look at it, and it'll tell you, oh, this is what character you were playing, this is what class they were, and these were the cards you had purchased with your experience points. So it makes it
Gotcha.
pretty easy to like reset up where you were. And
Nice.
because that was one of my concerns going in, is like, well, what if I want to play like a solo, because you can play it solo,
Yeah,
which
you
is
have to
also
like
cool.
leave it set up presumably on the table, take up
But
a whole
yeah,
table, but
you
apparently
don't
you don't
have
have to do
to.
that.
No,
That's
and
cool.
they make it easy to like pack the game up and pull it back out, and you don't have to, like,
Nice.
because I've heard with like Gloomhaven, it's just best to just leave it out the whole time.
Yeah.
And so
Same
I've
with like Risk or any of those.
right, and then
oh man.
I would say this is kind of Gloomhaven light. So if you like the
Okay.
idea of Gloomhaven but don't really want to commit to 6 months of playing a game, this might be it's a lower price point. It's got some really cool minis, and
Right
uh,
on.
it's a good time with friends.
Zach, do you have any, I guess, tangential situations to that? Any board games, card games? I know the new Magic set's got some Godzilla art that I really want.
We really like Magic, but we don't
Yeah,
have that many people to play with. So we've just kind of kept distance from it because we're like, man, we want to get back in, but we don't want to dive down that hole yet.
yeah. Dude, those
uh,
Godzilla cards have some incredible artwork. I
I
want
guess
them.
the only other thing that I've done, because you were mentioning like using an app to play with it, is an app game. I played a little bit of Minecraft Earth.
Oh, the AR game. How's that? Is that cool?
It's weird. It doesn't play like normal, but I'm
Yeah.
only a little ways in, and they don't have a whole lot of updates. But like, it sets up like a virtual dungeon that's in an AR
Okay.
space. So it gives you a square,
Hmm.
and you can play with your screen until you put it exactly where you want it, and then basically it's digging up and down, and you're fighting enemies, and you're hiding to keep your health, and you're eating like. So you have to manage your backpack before you go out real well because you can't just pull stuff out of the ether. It's cool. It's got that like app thing where you have to wait 2 hours for this, or you can speed it up now.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Which you
But
play at a lot of the AR games like Pokemon Go, and then the one that was based off like Niantic's other property,
yeah, Ingress. I love
Ingress.
Ingress. I still
Yeah,
play a little bit of
that's the
it.
one that I couldn't think of. Cool. So
Shiny
one of the things that I
rocks.
did while I was here, like we're still getting some stuff situated here at the house. So at the time, I didn't have a key to the house, and for whatever reason, we hadn't got one copied up to that point. So everybody had a key but me. But the other thing is the garage clicker in the back where I put my car, we only have one of those that's working. And so I didn't have a way to get in the house. And I'm like, what am I going to do all day? Everybody's gone until at least noon. And I was here at like 8:30, like, shit. And at that point, I'm like, well, I've been wanting to go to the video game museum. I did get my last paycheck, and it's like a half-hour drive. So I mean, it took me a lot longer because I was fighting with there's toll roads up here, and so you have to like tell your navigation to not use toll roads, and then that adds an extra like 20 minutes to your time or whatever. So about an hour and a half later, I end up at the National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas. Freaking amazing! There's so many cool like just like consoles and handhelds and displays, and there's a lot of stuff that's interactive. When you go in, they give you a handful of arcade tokens, and you can spend those on like Mortal Kombat 2. There's like a Miss Pac-Man machine.
Cool.
They have consoles set up, so I was like playing around a little bit with the Sega Saturn and Panzer Dragoon. Good Lord, we do not take um, like I take for granted what games used to look like on a like actual CRT because that game looked like dog shit. It was really like I don't know, like something about it. I was like, oh right, this is how video games were.
Well, what's cool about that is you one, you're growing in appreciation, but also that really impacted how games were made.
Yeah,
They would design games knowing that they would like the hardware that people were playing it on would change the end result, so they'd have to keep that in
yes.
mind when designing what a character would look like.
The
Like
one that I
so,
think about the most is I think it's Castlevania Circle of the Moon for the Game Boy Advance. They actually designed to be brighter because there weren't backlit screens at the time. So when you play that, it's like super washed out and like really bright colors. It's weird.
right, or like even just like
Huh.
the fuzziness of a CRT was kept in mind, so they would design a character, it would round it out and it would make the character look as intended. But then when you play it on a modern screen or even updated pixel perfect version, you're like, why does the character look so weird or blocky? And it was because on the hardware that you were playing it on, it changed it.
Now, I love that, modern emulation will like upscale things to where it looks as intended. And that's really been fascinating for a lot of 3D games too, because a lot of the Final Fantasies we see like updated, brought to the modern era. The like all the colors have been adjusted, frame rates adjusted, that sort of thing. So from the technical side of it, it's like it's complex, but not overly complex. But the video game museum was really really cool. I didn't get to talk to anybody. I just went there by myself and basically wandered around for an hour, but there's a lot of like really cool displays, things that you wouldn't see anywhere else. I got to see the Nintendo World Championships cartridge. One was signed.
Ooh.
There was
Nice.
a plaque or something signed by Miyamoto. Like there's a lot of things in there. But as you leave, you go through the gift shop, right? And
Uh,
I had a handful of tokens. I'm like, I need to use these tokens. I guess I'll play Miss Pac-Man and whatever's around. So I played that. I played some Galaga. I played some Gyrus. Whatever was available, and step into the gift shop. Look on my left at like the books and the controllers and whatever they had for sale. And on the shelf was the SNES Omnibus Volume One. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I have been hyping this up a lot. My name is in that book. I contributed to it. A local writer here in Fort Worth, his name is Brett Weiss. He put it all together, but he got a bunch of retro community people to like get their personal stories about games, and so I'm one of those people. And I also did a essay about emulation and why it's important for video game history. That's also in the book. And so even in such a very very small way, my name is in the National Video Game Museum, and I think that's really cool. And I bought a cup on the way out, so I've got a mug that's got the logo for the museum, and hopefully once I'm more financially stable, I want to like make a donation to those folks and really hype them up because what they're doing, what the National Video Game Preservation Society or whatever that other group is, they might even be the same group. That's really really important work, and without that work, we wouldn't have a lot of information that we have. Like, for instance, Primal Rage 2 being a thing, being playable, getting it running on emulation. Like, all of that is really, really important to this industry and this medium. So it was cool to make it out there. If you're in the area or if you want to make the pilgrimage out here, they're super clean right now. They hand sanitizers are everywhere. There's like sinks where you can wash your hands. Everybody's
Cool.
being socially distant. So like it is, even though Texas as itself is one of the more unsafe states when it comes to coronavirus, the National Video Game Museum are doing seemingly everything they can to make it a safe environment. So
Sweet.
I recommend going as soon as you can. It's a really, really cool place and 100% worth supporting.
Well, if I ever make it down to see you, we'll have to go check it out for
Yes,
sure.
anybody who
oh
visits
yeah.
me that's into games is taking that trip because it's an hour drive and it's really, really cool. And there's like a science museum in there too. But I mean, you're there for the National Video Game Museum. Let's be real. It's like 12 bucks.
That's not
Really
bad.
good stuff.
That's awesome.
So unless anybody has anything specific, we can get into some game news. Now these are some larger topics that a lot more dedicated people that have the money and the time and the research to actually get something out of what's going on So we're going to cover this kind of broadly and sweep over some of the more broad details. But there's some big things happening in games right now. So Joe, why don't you
Oh
start us off?
yeah.
Unless you want to do it, Zach. You want to
Uh,
lead?
I think the only thing I was going to talk about was recently Congressman John Lewis passed away, and now
Okay, so before we get into game news, let's
yeah,
talk about this.
yeah. That might seem like a weird thing to want to bring up on a video game nerdy podcast where we just discussed anime and video games and TV shows for an hour. The reason why I think it's significant and related to what we're doing is he was really heavily involved in the civil rights movement in the 60s. And he recently passed away at 80. Well, in the last 10 years, he has been releasing a graphic novel series based on his life and his involvement in that civil rights movement. And so it's a 3-volume story, graphic novel series called March. And the fact that in his 70s, when it came to telling his story and how to get his story to a younger generation, he was all for doing a graphic novel instead of a traditional like autobiography is really, really cool. And I think in a lot of ways can really showcase in the impact and the heaviness of the subject matter by showing you his memories, and because he had a big say in how things were depicted and shown and things like that. So while he did have a writer and an artist working with him on it, he can really like show you the emotional impact through color usage, through composition of shot, and through all these things, really nail down the significance of that time in his life and his involvement in it. And it was just really cool. The third volume came out in 2016, so that's how recently that this is a thing. And so it's got raving reviews. I haven't read it myself, but it's sold out right now, and they're having to order a new printing. And
oh
so
wow.
yeah,
Especially with the modern turmoil that's going on. Like these
right.
stories are more important than they've ever been.
And with his recent death, I think a lot of people were looking into it because it got brought to people's attention. But I'm sure you can get a digital copy for a decent price. The box set with the slipcase set of all 3 volumes is $50, which is not bad. But
Now
I'm
that's
sure
marked by what's the name of the guy again?
Congressman John Lewis, Lewis.
Gotcha.
So if you
Okay, yeah,
want,
I'm seeing it.
if you struggle, if you want to know more about that time and the civil rights movement and the importance of that representation and things like that, but struggle with reading a traditional autobiography or like just words on a page, but like reading graphic novels, this could really be valuable to a lot of people, particularly students in the middle school to high school range.
That'd be really cool.
There was another book that I want to look up real quick.
But yeah, no, he just in general, he was already like a really cool guy, and then he did a graphic novel about it too, and just opened the door for a lot of people to learn about the history in this country.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that you brought it up too, because there's a lot of really cool things that can be done with nerd culture and the nerdy medium, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always good to see that sort of thing kind of cross and be able to like make something worthwhile out of it. Because I mean, of course, us here we think that 90% of any nerdy medium is super worthwhile, but like not everybody thinks that. So being able to cross those barriers as often as you can is like really a way to reach new people.
Absolutely. So, but now we can get into like the kind of just a rundown of the video game news and things like that. But that was just something that I was going to bring up that week, but then we didn't meet that week, and then we just decided to take a month and a half off so Alex could move.
Yeah.
There might be a few weeks coming up where I might be gone because we're in the middle of buying a house. So, or hopefully buying a house. We're in the middle of renegotiating. So we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
Zach moved. I moved. There's a lot of things going on.
It has been a busy year on the outside of all of this.
Yeah, and so in the video game world, we have basically had a summer of E3 style events and a lot of shakeups. Things are like the nastiest parts of the industry are being unearthed, but we've also got a lot of we're on the precipice of change with the new consoles coming. There's a bunch of topics I don't even want to touch on because people are doing way better reporting than I ever will. But there's some nasty things happening at Ubisoft and some of the other major companies. A bunch of Activision Blizzard employees got together and compared salaries and were like, wait a minute, we're getting peanuts compared to everybody. And just as a reminder, their CEO is like one of the most overpaid CEOs in America and making millions upon billions annually. So like there's some change on the horizon, and there's a lot of people being outed, and people are just not going to stand for the poor behavior that they've been dealt.
Well,
And
we're also
so,
Right.
seeing things like the positive and negative sides of the target audience of things too. Like people
yeah,
attacking the voice actors for The Last of Us Part Two and threatening them is
awful.
ridiculous.
Hmm.
Like you can not like a game, but in the end of the day, it's just a game. Like you can be
And then
mad
you'll
all you
have other
want.
people, those same people that are mad about, whatever political thing is in The Last of Us Part 2, will completely ignore the like the the blood and sweat that was built as a foundation for like the major Assassin's Creed games. And so if you know me, you know that I don't support Activision Blizzard, especially their microtransactions. I stopped playing Overwatch years ago because of how they treated that one Hearthstone player. And so that amongst other things. But
Yeah.
it's a small thing, but and I don't expect everybody to be like super read up. And at the end of the day, there's got to be some sort of separation between art and artist. And there are some fantastic people that worked on Overwatch, but like there's certain companies that I don't care about. Like the new Crash 4 is going to be published by Activision Blizzard. I don't want to cover that for at least a month or two because that company has a tendency to say they're not putting microtransactions into it and then load it full of microtransactions after reviews hit.
Right.
So
Yep.
just on
I've
principle, I'm not
I've
touching
a
it.
yeah, I've avoided most Activision Blizzard stuff for several years now. I mean,
Hmm.
we got into a lot of COD stuff, but then everything's just kind of gone into the I really don't like these people or the things that they're doing camp. So I've avoided most of it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that Bungie got out because I've always liked Bungie's work. Even though I'm not like a super fan of Destiny, I still like I root for those folks. I want them to succeed and I want them to do cool and creative things. So I'm glad that they're out. They're their own thing now. But let's talk about some of the biggest. Speaking of Bungie, one of the biggest shakeups in the holiday season is that Halo Infinite was pushed back until 2021, maybe later. At the end of the day, it's been delayed. And so there was a big statement that came out on like a Monday morning or something by 343 Studios, and they said, "Hey, we're not going to be releasing alongside the launch of the Xbox Series X like we planned." And that was a big moment because that sort of decision doesn't happen lightly. And so there's just this wave as soon as that information hit, like there's this shift that you could feel throughout the gaming industry. And like people are talking about, their experience. Other people are like, we're so glad to have more time to work on it because there's some areas that we want to get into, especially a lot of the 343 developers. The thing that I walked away from it with is one, they cite that it's because of coronavirus and because of the health of their employees. I don't 100% believe that. I think that to do something like this at this scale for such a monumental title that could have like really pushed the Xbox Series X into the competitive forefront with the PS5, you
Right.
don't do that without there being some sort of money situation. Like major corporations don't make those decisions. They just don't. Would I like to think that they do? Sure. Do I hope that people get better hours because of this decision? Absolutely. But what we've seen time and time again, and a lot of this is being reported on actively by people like Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. You have multiple investigative reporters over at like Kotaku, The Verge. A lot of these people are finding out that when a delay happens, you think, oh, they're avoiding crunch. Usually that means longer crunch and extended crunch.
Yeah.
So I hope that's not the case with Halo Infinite, but if I were to bet money on it, I would say that they are going to be in a really, really stressful situation between now and launch.
And between now and launch, if we ever got to talk to anybody working on it, that would be awesome to hear too.
Of course.
Anonymously or not, we just want to hear the inside.
Yeah, of course we're a lot smaller, so us being able to talk to like an art director or something at Halo is like really small percentage wise. But I mean, we're here, we're available to talk. Anybody can come talk to us, whether you're the CEO of Microsoft or you're the CEO of your one man indie studio. Like I don't care. I'll take any story, and it's fine. Like we've always been just curious about anything. But I think that this delay is the one thing that like is going to really affect the launch of the Xbox Series X. And part of me thinks that they're going to delay that console as well.
I
Oh,
have
that
two
would be
thoughts.
huge.
I was thinking about it when they announced, and I read through the information on it, and I have two wilder theories in my
Now,
head.
just to preface this before you cut into that, the Xbox after this statement did say that they still plan on releasing in November.
Right. Um, with them still trying to release, I'm wondering if maybe they're trying to get people to hold off on maybe pre-ordering, as much as that's a good thing for them, or what everybody measures their metrics off of anyway, but then to fix whatever might be wrong after launch and then release Halo and all these magical updates that make it better
Do you
at the
think it's
same time.
hardware or software errors? Because I think
Maybe
it's software errors. I don't think it's
I,
the hardware.
I think it might be both.
Really? Okay.
We're just in new territory for hardware. It
Yeah.
should be a lot easier to work with, but also everybody's been doing a weird scramble for it, or so they say. And
There's
Well,
who
always growing
knows?
pains for these
I can't
consoles as well.
imagine being like, imagine you're one of the devs, you're on the team or whatever, and you know your deadline's coming up in November, and you're looking at what needs to be done, and you have to tell your boss it won't be done in time, or like if we do, someone might die because they didn't sleep for 4 days. Um,
F- fucking death
but
marches.
you also have this pressure because if it was any other time, you could be like, okay, we can delay the game or whatever. But when you're the game that is pushing a separate product on launch day, that cannot have been a fun conversation to have.
No. And apparently, based on a lot of the like interviews I've listened to, what's interesting about this particularly is the next day, Phil Spencer, like the, face of Xbox in a lot of ways, the guy that talks about Xbox the most, was on Gary Whitta's Animal Talking show. And he could have been like, things are weird right now, Gary. I don't want to be on the show. But he did. He went on the show. He talked about it fairly candidly. And I haven't listened to that whole interview, but I listened to Gary react to that in the new Xbox kind of funny XCast show
Yeah, and it looks like
where he's
Nicole
a co-host.
Carpenter over at Polygon did a quick
Mm-hmm.
summary and has the interview embedded in the article. So if you're
Yeah, that
interested,
interview
go
is
check
available
that
on
out.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Yep.
go check that out. And if you want to hear more in depth, because we can only kind of like brush over some of these topics right now.
Yeah. Now, Phil, from what I've gathered on the interviews and what Gary was talking about, is that he agreed that it wasn't something they did lightly, but they also talked about how confident they were in Game Pass and some of the things they're doing at Xbox and their other developers. So they were. He doesn't seem completely defeated by the news, but of course it hurts. It hurts to have your flagship franchise, one that's been kind of like lagging behind in a lot of sense. Halo 4 and Halo 5 since 343 Studios started didn't do super well critically. Like people kind of hated Halo 5. I didn't like the campaign at all. I think it was one of the worst campaigns they ever put out. But
Yeah.
so there's a lot riding on this release. It has to be good.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things where they're like, well, we technically can release it, but people are going to
Hmm.
be mad.
They
Like,
talked about doing it in pieces too. Like maybe we'll just release the multiplayer and then come back with a campaign and some other updates.
ooh, I don't know
But
if that would go
we
well
may
either.
see
People
a
hate
beta.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, we may see a beta. And it may be tied. Xbox famously like puts Halo betas with other games they're trying to market. So we saw in Crackdown 2 you got the Halo 3 beta and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they'll put out a release and just attach the beta, or they'll attach the beta to Game Pass and be like, if you want to play Halo Infinite early, you can, but you have to have Game Pass, which is,
Ooh.
kind of a low entry. It's $15 a month right now. You can get it for $1 currently because of all these like specials. So Game Pass remains one of the best deals in gaming, but like this hurts. This really, really hurts Xbox.
It does. That's a really good segue into another hot topic.
Yes.
Going into Apple denying the xCloud, so not being able to use your Game Pass on like their devices. Apple's cracking a lot of whips in that direction.
Yeah, they
A
are.
lot of things that will add to that. But in regards to xCloud, so for anybody unaware, xCloud is a streaming service where basically you can take your Xbox library, stream it to your phone, and it's powered by Xboxes in the sky, the ones in the clouds, not your Xbox. Like whenever I remote play from for PS4, I'm actually sending the signal on my PS4 to my phone. For xCloud, it's going to be the Xboxes in the sky to your phone. So it's a really stronger connection in a lot of ways, and you theoretically can use it in more places. They just put out a bunch of here's some controllers we're developing for the xCloud stuff. They're partnering with 8BitDo, I think, is one of them, and some other companies. But this also really hurts Xbox because billions and billions upon people use iPhones, and
Yeah.
so if you cut that market out, you don't get those users,
So do
and
you
it's
think
just
this is
really
a?
unfortunate.
I think this is kind of a mixed thing because combining this, like it shows that Apple isn't gonna let people get away with violating their store guidelines just
No
because they're
matter
a
who you
big,
are.
well, yeah, like just because you're Microsoft or just because you're Fortnite doesn't mean you get to break our store guidelines. Especially
Yeah.
when it kind of seems like, at least with the Fortnite thing, they deliberately did it on purpose to cause a fight.
Yes, and that's the other major story alongside this. But the thing that I was reading on, various social media posts and people that are looking into this is they have made exceptions to their terms of service for people like Amazon. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's kind
Yeah,
of a lot of like big giant company people are going head to head on this, and clearly Epic knew the path that Apple would take because as soon as Fortnite was removed from the Apple
Yeah,
Store,
they had a
shortly
lawsuit
after they had an
already
animation.
filed.
They had the lawsuit, they had the animation, the Mox 1984, which is kind of not the super. It's if you know that story and know what that story was going after, it makes this seem much worse. But it's a weird situation because not only was Fortnite pulled from the Apple Store, but Fortnite was pulled from the Google Store because Fortnite was doing a back end direct payment so they could make more money. And that seems to be Epic's goal here is to have these major tech companies reduce their cut because right now they're getting upwards of 30% of sales.
Yeah,
And that's
that
yes.
seems
that's
like a
a
on
lot.
lot. Yeah.
on every dollar. So 30
Yeah.
cents after every dollar goes to the App Store for people who don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. And some of that is a little bit of vetting stuff, but more often than not, it's just this service is put on the store and it just lives there. And just to
Yeah.
live there, they take 30 cents off of every single dollar that passes through.
And that is absolutely ridiculous because and that's something that the Epic Store was trying to do better is they have lower rates, indies can make a lot more money. Your first million or whatever, you don't get any cuts taken out of that. But
Yeah.
regardless, what we have here are giant tech companies, lots and lots of money being thrown around, and it's just a pissing match. Like what'll eventually happen is either Epic will create their own storefront or Apple like there's a lot of things being investigated with Apple specifically when it comes
Yeah.
to,
Well,
information and their
Well,
store
well,
policies and all that.
there's a lot with them, and even on like Android. It's a lot more based on Apple because Android
Yeah.
lets you get stuff around its store. Like you can buy just an
Yeah.
yeah,
APK package
you
that
can
somebody does.
Amazon has their own storefront for apps for
Hmm.
Android.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yes.
use the Google Play Store. You can use whatever place like store that
Yeah.
you just
That
have
you
to
want.
allow, you just have to basically go through and basically like, yes, I give this app permission even though it's not Android approved or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, but Apple doesn't, and that's starting to cross into a lot of like antitrust regulators' eyes in business, trying to be like, okay, so is this the Apple's creating an only monopoly to be able to use this widespread product that
Right.
you have to use them and you have to pay them and you can't do anything otherwise?
And
Or if
I would feel better about it if the Apple Store is worth a damn. It's full of trash.
Yeah, it's
true.
super
Full of like
trash.
There's
It's
so
awful
much
just
trash on
shovelware
it.
that people just throw on there.
Well,
Like it
considering how
would
many
be
YouTubers make videos about, hey, I just downloaded and played every single Garfield game on the Apple Store, and they're like just hilariously bad.
yeah, there's like 40 of them. Like there's no actual good curation, and Steam has had troubles with this too, but it's
Yeah,
gotten better over the last couple of years. But Apple is probably one of the worst digital storefronts I've used in a very long time. Like if I don't know specifically what I'm searching for, and half the time when you type that in specifically, you don't get it. You have to like type it in every single character correct. Like it's really really awful.
yeah,
And
every
so
character
trying to
correct.
find an app is like finding a needle in a haystack.
yeah.
Right, and
This
then they have copies of them. So you'll
Yes.
find the app, the picture of the app you're looking for, but it's some, fucking dude in South Africa who just made a random app with the same picture, and
Yeah.
suddenly you've got the wrong shit, and he's got all your information.
Exactly.
yeah,
And people take like,
and
popular
that
properties. Like if you just typed in Mario into the App Store right now, you could find 80 that are not supposed to be there
and
that
you know who
Nintendo just either can't do anything about or Apple doesn't care to do anything about.
and the targets for these are the elderly and children.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the easiest targets ever.
Microsoft also in their statement kind of put Apple on like I don't know if on blast is the right thing, but Apple stands alone as the only general purpose platform to deny consumers from cloud gaming and game subscription services like Xbox Game Pass. Basically saying, look, if you own any other device, you can do this. It's only Apple that has a problem right now. And we
Which
can't
could cause a surge towards Android because
yeah.
your gaming populace is growing by the day. There's what 100 million active users at any given point on Fortnite.
Yeah.
And that's like not at the height of its popularity. The people who have downloaded and have played it at least once, like people are gaming. And
Yeah,
so
and
if Apple's just like, we're not doing Fortnite, we're not doing the major xCloud thing, and if it's super cool, you can't have it. People are just gonna fucking switch.
Yeah.
yeah,
And you included this article about how Apple is touting its services growth with more users than ever before.
Yeah.
And at the same time that
Now that was data from 2019, so January.
okay. But still they're like immediately following that they're picking these fights with Microsoft, Epic Games, like these user bases with huge followers, and I can guarantee you if someone is a super big Xbox fan and wants to play their games on the go, or is a huge Fortnite fan and want to play their game on the go, they will switch. They will go to where they can play their games.
Now I don't like that Epic was basically trying to rally the gamers rise up kind of situation that's going on here.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. That's big companies have enough control over us.
But if they're doing it on behalf of these indie developers, because if they're the ones that have the money to go and pick this fight, and and the end result is indie developers get more of their dollar if they sell something on the Apple Store.
That's a great thing. At the end of the day, what happened was somebody in the finance department was looking at their numbers and being like, we gave Apple a lot of money. We need to do something about that. I'm sure that was the main motivation, but like, if just by reaction we get better storefronts for our indies, like that's always a plus.
Absolutely.
Oh, right. It's Tweeny. Tim Sweeney
Yeah.
he's made a really interesting
CEO
tweet
of
thread.
Epic.
Yeah,
Mhm.
trying to find
in Fortnite
that
anyway,
thread because he refers to a few things in a way I wasn't expecting him to. There's specifically one I remember him saying stuff about the metaverse. He's mentioned this a couple things in other stuff like Internet 2. I think we've talked about and like touched on briefly, but he's like, he's like Apple's just blocking people from being able to do this like metaverse, like where you're able to just have in and out control. He's like, and he frames his like kind of attack on Apple about this for just limiting everybody so hard.
Yeah. And IGN is the ones that specifically put out the article about like weaponizing Fortnite fans. And I'm looking at his Twitter now, and as of August 15th, today's the 16th, He was like, "Look, IGN says that Epic is weaponizing Fortnite fans, but the armament being offered is simply an idea that the maker of a smartphone does not have the right to dictate the terms of our lives and our businesses." And so again, these are major companies. They care about money.
Yeah.
But if we can get some better user related regulations and situations, then that's a plus. But we'll see how these lawsuits go. Epic Games has a lot of big Fortnite money to swing around.
Yeah, and the other thing
Yeah.
to clarify here, the Fortnite thing in Epic Games is not just Apple. They sued Google as well because they had a
Yes.
similar issue with Google, but they were ready with lawsuits immediately. So this was a totally planned from the start. That you
Yep.
don't get a lawsuit ready within an hour.
This was calculated to
Yeah.
and either they read Apple like a book, or Apple was discussed in private and they're like, this is what we're gonna do. And then like, all right, plan C it is.
And you know
Strap
what?
in, folks.
As much stuff as Epic has done in a while, like, and Tim Sweeney's like actually gone out there and just like, because he's usually shaking a stick at anybody who's cutting little guys out of money, which is kind of cool. Uh, he's probably planned for these scenarios for fucking ever.
Yeah, this
He's
wasn't
probably-
something that happened overnight. There's no way.
No, like you're saying Plan C, and I think that's serious. I think he's got like 5 or 6 plans just ready to take on somebody. Like, oh, they're blocking us out of A, B, and D. Like, let's use C. C fails. We're gonna go to F.
Him and his people. I mean, it's not just a one-man show in any of these situations, but yeah.
Right. But he is the absolute face taking it on. He's like that.
Yeah.
He's like your lead singer, how you identify the band.
Yeah, but between Halo being delayed and now with xCloud fighting with Apple, as most companies are fighting with Apple right now, like it spells not great for Xbox at the end of the year. And Xbox is behind anyways. So, and they don't seem to be super phased by that. A lot of the discussions that Phil Spencer puts out is like, we're not super into the competition side of this. So maybe that's fine for them. I mean, Microsoft has got a lot of money too. So at the end of the day, they could probably take some losses on the Xbox projects and just get things out there and eventually like steamroll into some good finance, right? But at the end of the day, like from the consumer standpoint, Xbox is on a slow decline at the end of the year, and that sucks because I really want to see them succeed, even though I don't like the Xbox One at all, or most of the like exclusive games are fine, but it's just unfortunate because now it means that the PS5 is again going to have that one up, and when you have one company at the top, things start to get wonky.
Right. Yeah, I don't like Microsoft. I like Sony's products a lot better, but I want to see Microsoft do well enough that it makes Sony sweat into having to do things better.
Yes, because if it wasn't for things like that, we wouldn't have crossplay. We wouldn't have cross saves. Like all these really pro-consumer mechanics just wouldn't exist because PlayStation was super, super against them. So I don't know. We'll see. Lots of big companies swinging around a lot of big money, and
hopefully
who knows
we'll get some
where
updates.
the dust will settle.
Hopefully we'll get some updates on these in the next coming week, and we'll we'll be sure to talk about it. So keep tuning in. But we are getting close to an hour and a half here.
Okay, let's do a wrap up.
So
you want to talk about games that are coming out this month?
Yeah, I can do that.
Just go for it, man.
So the ones that are like probably the most known, we've got Mortal Shell coming out on August 18th, so just a couple of days. The complete reboot, modern remake of Battletoads is August 20th. That comes out on Xbox One and Windows.
I think that's on Game Pass too, so if you're on Game Pass, you should be able to play it.
Awesome. And then Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on August 27th on PS4, Switch, iOS, Android. And all of those, I think, will be some sort of level of cross-play as well, which is super cool. And you only need one one real copy of it purchased to be able to play with your friends on other devices. So they will do something similar with the download play on the old DS. Where with like Mario Kart, where one cartridge can play 8 people at once, which is super cool that they're kind of bringing that idea back. Because I think people have missed that aspect, particularly with the Switch. Why do all of us have to own Mario Kart, like kind of thing? So
I'm excited at that release in particular because I think that's a really cool way to go about a remake, especially one that's like so co-op oriented,
yeah,
and it just get more people playing it. So I don't know. I'm excited. I hope I get to play that with you guys.
I'd be interested.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know there's going to be a major update for Baldur's Gate 3, which was supposed to come out to beta this month, but they said they were going to miss that deadline and were going to give us a more hard date, um, or like a more reliable date in an update that's coming, I think, in a couple of days. If not, it
Yeah.
happened a couple days ago. I can't remember exactly.
Dates are liquid. Expect delays this year. Some
Yes.
of the major releases are undoubtedly going to be delayed. Don't take any particular release date like at face value.
Yeah, but what it is clear with Baldur's Gate 3, Larian, who made Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, this is like a passion project for them. The
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate games were the reason they became a game studio, they said. Like,
Right.
those were some of the games that inspired them to make games. And so to be trusted with the third installment of the series that made them want to make games is huge for them. And they really want to capture the essence of Dungeons and Dragons in video game form, which is what they did with Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, but now they get the actual permission, like official rule set
We're
and
gonna get beholders.
setting.
We're
to,
gonna
like,
get mind flayers.
yeah, we're gonna get like everything they've ever wanted in a Baldur's Gate game is going to be here.
Yeah.
And they're just really like overhauling their system. I'm excited about it, but look for an update on that soon. Is there anything else that you guys know are coming up soon?
I mean, Cuphead hit PS4 recently, and there's some DLC coming to that probably before the end of the year, and
That's
that
true.
might be when I sit down and play Cuphead.
Okay.
So that's one that I'm looking forward to. I've got a review that I can't talk about that'll take me a few weeks, so I'm excited for that. Mortal Shell, I think, is the big one for most people, especially if you're fans of what we're fans of, because we really like Souls-likes. And I hope that that one's as good as it looks, because everything that we've seen, everything that we've played, shows a lot of potential. So I'm excited for that release in particular. We'll have a preview written by Zach up by Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem to be the big one. Otherwise, Sony did a kind of a preview of upcoming games.
Yeah, they had a state of play.
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
And it was PS4 kind of centric with some PS5 stuff in it. The big one there was Crash Bandicoot 4.
And Bugsnax gameplay was the big headliner.
Is that the one where they got yelled at a lot for not doing any like PlayStation stuff related news and like changed their tone like the next day and were like, we're gonna do some stuff?
I'm not
Well,
sure.
initially I think they pitched it as like it's going to be PS4 centric. And so I went in thinking there'd be no PS5 stuff, but there's
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 PS5 stories.
Otherwise, upcoming, we've, Marvel Avengers had a mixed beta.
Yeah, people are not
reception.
into that.
And but we've also got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake coming up pretty
People
soon
are digging that one.
Yeah,
The demo's available now if you pre-order
they're
it, and
excited.
it supposedly feels just like Tony Hawk.
Yep. But I think that pretty much covers everything. If anyone in chat has any questions or any games to suggest that we should be taking a look at, now is the perfect time to let us know. But again, thank you so much, Rakimdar, for playing and walking us through some the Phantasy Star Online 2 last night. We really appreciate that. And, of course, for the Prime sub. That helps everything we do here. But,
Let's go ahead and do a show closeout, and then we'll take the viewer questions.
Okay. So give people a chance to ask their questions while we do our closeout.
All right, so thank you everybody for listening to us. There's lots and lots of game news to cover. We're going to be covering not a whole lot of the like major things later on. We're going to find some smaller news to share with you. But regardless, we're back and we've got a new layout and things are going to be really, really cool from here on out. Lots of things in the fire. But so, Zach, if somebody wanted to find you on the internet, where might they do that?
You're going to find me at Exquisite Liar pretty much everywhere except for Twitter, where I am exquisite_liar.
Mr. Joseph.
You can find me on Twitter at TheDaddyGamer or on Twitch at DaddyGamerYT, where I stream primarily with my daughter. We do family-friendly content, so if that's more your groove, check us out there. You can also find me on YouTube at Daddy Gamer Reviews, and that's pretty much where I'm most active, are those three places. Otherwise, the Discord server is a great place to connect with all three of us.
Yes, and a lot of these links and stuff are available in the show notes, show description, so they're easily accessible. A lot of it is anchored on our website, foreverclassicgames.com, where you can find our reviews, our news, our written content. It's basically the focal point for just about everything we do. And all of our social media handles are available in the top right. There's a search function, and anything you would expect for a website. But if you wanted to send us an email, drop that to the foreverclassicpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, concerns, whatever. We have a Patreon. We have a place that you can donate directly through PayPal, and that's paypal.me/foreverclassicgames. And Patreon, if you also search for Forever Classic Games, you'll find us there. Eventually, we will be offering ad-free versions of the news show. All of the specials and interviews that we do, those will continue to be ad-free as long as we're doing this. And so if you wanted to pick up the ad-free version of our weekly show, that'll be available to you for like the $5 or whatever. And if you wanted to hit me up specifically, I am at Twitter at ACMccumbers, and I'm pretty easy to find just about anywhere. So I'm always down to talk to whoever. DM's always open. I'm just around. So thank you all very much for listening to this episode of the Forever Classic Podcast. As always, stay safe, stay cool, and just be good to each other.